Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to explore the nature of love, not as it is often portrayed in fleeting passions or romantic ideals, but as it is understood through the lens of Stoic philosophy. We live in a world where love is often equated with emotion, spontaneity, and desire, but the Stoic path leads us to a deeper understanding, one that invites us to see love as something far greater, something written between the lines of our actions, virtues, and choices. In Stoicism, love is not merely an emotion or a fleeting passion, but rather an integral part of our moral character and rational nature. The Stoic conception of love differs significantly from the conventional understanding of love that is often associated with intense feelings, attachment, and desire. For the Stoics, love is not something that comes and goes with the winds of fortune or the fluctuations of our emotions. Instead, it is deeply embedded in the pursuit of virtue, wisdom, and self-control. Love, in this sense, is an action rather than a passive experience, a reflection of one's inner strength and capacity for rational thought. The Stoics believed that we are not driven by our passions or external circumstances, but by our ability to reason. The essence of love, according to Stoic thought, lies in its alignment with virtue, which is the highest good. In the same way that we strive to cultivate virtues such as courage, justice, and wisdom, love too must be governed by these principles. This is a love that is not irrational or subject to the whims of external events, but is instead rooted in a deep understanding of our human nature and our purpose in life. To love in the Stoic sense is to see others as fellow rational beings, deserving of respect and compassion. It is a love that is not self-centered, driven by the desire to possess or control, but is guided by a sense of justice and fairness. When we love in this way, we are not looking for validation or gratification through the relationship. Rather, we are offering a gift of ourselves, a commitment to the well-being of others rooted in our own sense of moral duty. This view of love is based on the understanding that each person has inherent worth, independent of how they make us feel or what they can offer us in return. Moreover, Stoic love is not about attachment to the other person or a longing for their presence. The Stoics warned against becoming overly attached to people or things because attachment leads to dependence, and dependence leads to suffering. When we love, we must do so with detachment, not in the sense of being cold or indifferent, but in the sense of recognizing that we do not control the actions or feelings of others. Love becomes pure when it is free from expectations or demands. It is an offering made not because of what we expect to receive, but because it aligns with our nature as virtuous beings. In a world where emotions can often lead us astray, the Stoics teach us that love is a choice, an exercise in self-control and reason. Emotions like jealousy, possessiveness, or the fear of loss can cloud our judgment and distort the way we relate to others. But Stoic love is not swayed by such emotions. It is grounded in a rational understanding of human relationships, where love is not something that overpowers us, but something that is carefully cultivated through the practice of virtue. This kind of love is also resilient. Unlike love that is built on passion or external circumstances, Stoic love endures even in the face of adversity. It is not contingent upon whether the other person reciprocates our feelings or remains a constant presence in our lives. Instead, it is a love that remains steadfast, grounded in our own sense of duty and virtue. The Stoic sees love as something that transcends the highs and lows of emotional experience and is instead a constant, a force that remains unchanged by external forces. In summary, Stoic love is not simply an emotional state. It is an intentional, virtuous act that arises from our capacity to reason, empathize, and understand the inherent worth of others. It is a love that is rooted in virtue, detached from emotional dependency, and grounded in a rational recognition of the impermanence of all things. When we love in this way, we act not out of need or desire, but out of a commitment to what is good, just, and true. This love is not a fleeting passion, but a steady, enduring force that can guide our relationships and our actions throughout our lives. True love, in the Stoic philosophy, is considered an inner virtue, something that arises not from external circumstances or emotions, but from the cultivation of personal character and the exercise of reason. It is deeply tied to the concept of virtue in Stoicism, which teaches that our actions should be aligned with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. In this framework, love is not simply a fleeting feeling or a passion that comes and goes based on external events, but rather a conscious and deliberate act rooted in the pursuit of moral excellence. To love, according to Stoic thought, is to see others as fellow rational beings deserving of our respect and care, independent of their actions or the benefits they may provide us. This inner virtue of love is about embodying certain qualities that promote both individual well-being and the well-being of others. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of self-control and mastery over one's emotions. Love, in this sense, is not driven by uncontrolled passion or dependency, but is a product of deliberate thought and emotional regulation. The Stoic does not allow love to be dictated by desire or external validation, but instead chooses to love as an expression of inner strength, guided by reason and aligned with virtue. In Stoic philosophy, the foundation of love is rooted in the recognition that all people are inherently worthy of respect simply by virtue of their shared humanity. Every person, regardless of their personal attributes or how they may treat us, deserves to be seen with empathy and understanding. This is not to say that the Stoic embraces blind affection or approval for all behavior, but rather that love is extended based on the recognition of a person's intrinsic value as a rational being. True love is not about placing conditions on others or seeking to control their behavior. It is about accepting them as they are, understanding that they, too, are navigating the same challenges in life that we are. Additionally, Stoic love is a love that grows through practice and is cultivated over time. It is not something that arises spontaneously or is dependent on immediate gratification. Instead, it is a love that is developed through consistent effort and conscious intention. The Stoic learns to love not by giving in to whims or desires, but by developing the virtues that allow them to love in a deep, meaningful way. This includes cultivating patience, understanding, and kindness, not just in moments of joy, but especially in times of difficulty and adversity. A Stoic loves in the full knowledge that relationships, like all things, are subject to change and impermanence, and that the quality of love is not determined by how long or how intensely it lasts, but by the integrity and virtue with which it is given. The Stoic also teaches that love is not a one-sided endeavor. It is something that requires active participation and reciprocal effort. Love in this sense is not just a passive feeling, but a mutual exchange that requires both parties to work together toward common goals. However, unlike the common notion of love as an emotional exchange, Stoic love is not reliant on emotional reciprocity. The Stoic remains grounded in their own virtue, regardless of whether the love they offer is returned in kind. This attitude does not stem from a sense of detachment or indifference, but from the understanding that love is not about personal gain or validation. It is about the pursuit of the greater good and the exercise of virtue. To love as an inner virtue is also to recognize that love does not need to be expressed in grand gestures or dramatic displays. In the Stoic tradition, love is often expressed through small, everyday actions, through the way we treat others, the respect we show, and the kindness we offer in times of need. Love is not always loud or visible. It is sometimes subtle and understated, woven into the fabric of our daily lives and choices. It is a love that is reflected not in words alone, but in actions that demonstrate empathy, consideration, and a commitment to justice. Ultimately, the Stoic conception of love as an inner virtue teaches us that love is not a passive force that happens to us, but an active choice that we make every day. It is a reflection of who we are and how we choose to engage with the world around us. It is not defined by external events or fleeting emotions, but by the steady, consistent application of virtue and wisdom. To love in this way is to choose again and again to act in accordance with our highest values, to recognize the worth of others, and to offer ourselves fully to relationships without attachment or expectation. This love, rooted in virtue, not only enriches our lives but elevates the lives of those around us. In Stoic philosophy, the concept of impermanence is central to understanding love, as well as all aspects of life. The Stoics teach that everything in the world is transient, that all things, whether experiences, people, or emotions, are temporary and subject to change. This recognition of impermanence shapes how we should approach love, guiding us to appreciate it without attachment or possessiveness. Love, in this context, becomes something to be appreciated in the present moment, knowing full well that it will not last forever. It encourages us to engage with love more fully, to experience it deeply while also remaining detached from the fear of its loss. The Stoics assert that our suffering often arises from attachment to things that are fleeting and beyond our control. We may grow attached to a person, a relationship, or the feelings that come with love, but all these are vulnerable to the changes of life. People change, circumstances change, and ultimately, everything we hold dear is impermanent. To love with wisdom, according to Stoicism, is to recognize this truth and to love in a way that is free from anxiety over what may happen in the future or what has happened in the past. We are urged to love in the present, appreciating it for what it is without clinging to it or fearing its eventual loss. Understanding impermanence also allows us to cultivate a sense of gratitude for the moments we share with others. Love becomes richer when we acknowledge that it is a rare and fleeting experience, rather than something that will endure unchanged. In this light, love is no longer something to take for granted, but a precious gift to be cherished in its temporary form. The Stoic perspective on impermanence helps us find a deeper, more profound connection with those we love, because we can experience love without the pressure of trying to make it last forever. We can focus on the quality of our love and our actions rather than the idea of possession or an expectation of permanence. Furthermore, by embracing impermanence, Stoics teach us to detach from the desire to control love or to shape it according to our wishes. This is not to say that we become indifferent or disconnected from those we care about, but rather that we accept the natural course of things. Relationships may ebb and flow, and people may come and go from our lives, but by understanding the nature of change, we avoid the suffering that comes from clinging to something that is not meant to last. We learn to love without fear, knowing that love, like all things, is part of a larger, ever-changing process. This Stoic approach to love also helps us navigate the inevitable challenges that arise within relationships. Since we understand that nothing is permanent, we are less likely to become distressed when love is tested by time, conflict, or separation. We may experience moments of joy and fulfillment, but we are also prepared for moments of difficulty or loss. This resilience does not mean we do not feel the pain of loss, but rather that we have the strength to accept it as a natural part of life's cycle. It is through this acceptance that we can continue to love without becoming consumed by grief or regret when things inevitably change. Stoicism also emphasizes the importance of focusing on what is within our control and letting go of what is not. We cannot control the actions or feelings of others, and we cannot prevent the passage of time or the changes it brings. However, we can control how we respond to these changes and how we choose to engage with love. By recognizing that love is impermanent, we free ourselves from the unrealistic expectation that it should be constant or unchanging. We can approach love with a sense of openness and flexibility, remaining present in each moment without holding on to the idea of how it should be. In conclusion, the Stoic understanding of impermanence invites us to approach love with a balanced and mature perspective. It teaches us to appreciate love while it is present, without clinging to it or becoming consumed by the fear of losing it. By acknowledging the temporary nature of all things, including love, we can love more fully, more authentically, and with a sense of gratitude. We learn that love does not need to last forever to be meaningful. It is the quality of our love, the virtues we embody in loving, and the way we choose to engage in the present that truly matters. Embracing impermanence allows us to love without attachment, to navigate the inevitable changes in relationships with grace, and to experience the full depth of love without the weight of expectation or fear. In Stoic philosophy, self-mastery is a cornerstone of living a virtuous life, and it plays a crucial role in how we experience love. Stoics believe that true freedom comes from mastering our emotions and desires rather than being controlled by them. This concept of self-mastery extends to our relationships and our capacity to love. In a world where love is often portrayed as something that overwhelms or consumes us, the Stoic perspective offers a different view, one where love is not a force that controls us, but rather an intentional act of virtue and self-discipline. To love with wisdom, according to Stoic thought, is to exercise control over our emotional impulses, so that love becomes an expression of our highest values, rather than a reaction to fleeting feelings or external circumstances. Self-mastery in love means not allowing ourselves to be governed by the whims of passion or the fleeting nature of emotions. Emotions, while natural and inevitable, are not always reliable guides for our actions. In the case of love, this means not allowing jealousy, possessiveness, or fear of loss to dictate how we behave. Love in this context is not about dependency, nor is it about seeking validation through another person. It is about choosing to love with rationality and virtue, regardless of external circumstances. This practice of emotional regulation does not mean suppressing feelings or being indifferent, but it does involve not being controlled by them. A Stoic person does not let love become a source of distress or suffering. Instead, they approach love with equanimity, acting from a place of inner stability rather than emotional turbulence. In relationships, this self-mastery manifests in how we engage with others. When we love, we must do so without the need to possess or control the other person. The Stoic view of love encourages us to let go of the desire to own the one we love, and instead focus on fostering mutual respect, understanding, and compassion. Love, then, is not a form of attachment or a means to fulfill our personal desires, but a choice to act virtuously toward another. To love with self-mastery is to be aware of our own limitations and desires, and to ensure that our actions align with the broader principles of justice, wisdom, and fairness. Furthermore, self-mastery in love involves recognizing that love, like all aspects of life, is subject to change. The Stoics teach that we cannot control the behavior or feelings of others, nor can we control the course of time. Love may be reciprocated, or it may not. It may last, or it may fade. What we can control is how we choose to respond. A Stoic does not become distraught when love changes or fades, because they recognize that change is a natural part of life. In practicing self-mastery, we detach from the need for love to remain constant, instead focusing on acting with virtue regardless of the outcome. This allows us to love freely, without fear of losing ourselves in the relationship or becoming consumed by the need for its permanence. Self-mastery also means that we do not allow love to become a source of anxiety or stress. Love can sometimes be demanding, and when we depend on it for our happiness or sense of self-worth, we invite frustration and dissatisfaction into our lives. In contrast, the Stoic approach to love is grounded in understanding that our happiness and sense of fulfillment come from within, not from external sources. When we are self-sufficient in our inner peace, we can love others without expecting them to complete us or fulfill all our emotional needs. This kind of love is free from desperation or attachment, and it is rooted in a sense of autonomy and inner strength. Moreover, the Stoic notion of self-mastery extends to the way we engage with our emotions in the context of love. While Stoics do not advocate for repressing emotions, they do believe that we must train ourselves to respond to emotions in a rational, constructive way. If jealousy or anger arises in the course of a relationship, for example, the Stoic would not react impulsively. Instead, they would take a moment to reflect on their feelings and their causes, determining whether these emotions are based on rational thought or distorted perceptions. Through this process of reflection, the Stoic can prevent these emotions from controlling their actions and instead choose the most virtuous course. In conclusion, love, in the Stoic sense, is an expression of self-mastery. It is not a love that controls or overwhelms us, but one that is guided by wisdom, virtue, and emotional discipline. Self-mastery in love allows us to engage in relationships without becoming dependent or attached to outcomes. It frees us from the turmoil of emotional extremes and enables us to love others with kindness, respect, and fairness, regardless of external circumstances. Through the practice of self-mastery, we come to understand that love is not about possession or fulfillment of personal desires, but about acting in accordance with our highest values, offering our love freely and without expectation. This approach leads not only to healthier relationships, but also to greater peace and fulfillment in our own lives. In Stoic philosophy, the idea of universal love is intricately connected to the understanding that all human beings are part of a larger, interconnected whole. Stoicism teaches us that we are not isolated individuals, but rather members of a global community, sharing a common human nature. The Stoics urge us to recognize that the same rational soul that exists within us exists within others as well, regardless of their background, beliefs, or circumstances. In this sense, love is not just something we reserve for a select few, but an attitude that extends to all people. True love, from the Stoic perspective, is not confined to personal relationships or limited to those who are close to us. It is a broader, more inclusive love that transcends borders, differences, and divisions. It is a love that recognizes the shared humanity in all and that seeks to promote the common good of the whole human race. This universal love is rooted in the Stoic belief in the interconnectedness of all things. According to the Stoics, everything in the universe is part of a grand, rational order, and human beings, as rational creatures, are a part of this larger cosmic framework. The Stoic understanding of love thus calls us to embrace the idea that we are not separate from others, but that we are all connected in our pursuit of virtue, wisdom, and happiness. Love, in this sense, is not about attachment to a specific person, but about fostering a sense of solidarity and empathy with all people. It is an invitation to see beyond superficial differences and to recognize the shared dignity of all individuals, regardless of their circumstances. This broader view of love encourages us to act with kindness, respect, and fairness toward others, even when they may not be close to us or when we disagree with them. In everyday life, this Stoic approach to love can manifest in small yet significant ways. It may involve showing compassion to someone who is suffering, offering help to someone in need, or extending patience and understanding to those whose views differ from our own. It is a love that calls us to act in ways that promote harmony and unity, not division. When we love universally, we are not motivated by personal gain or the desire for reciprocation, but by the recognition that all human beings are deserving of our respect and kindness. Moreover, the Stoic conception of universal love extends to our relationships with strangers and even with those who may not share our values or beliefs. Stoicism teaches that our duty is to treat all people justly and fairly, regardless of their social status, ethnicity, or personal characteristics. This can sometimes be difficult, especially when faced with individuals whose actions or beliefs we find objectionable. However, the Stoic insists that our capacity for love is not dependent on the behavior or attitudes of others. Instead, it is rooted in our ability to act virtuously and to recognize the inherent worth of every person. True love, therefore, is unconditional in the sense that it does not rely on the external qualities of the people we love, but on our own commitment to justice, empathy, and understanding. The Stoics also emphasize that the love we express towards others should align with our understanding of what is good for them, rather than what is good for ourselves. Often, love in conventional terms is driven by a desire to fulfill our own emotional needs or desires. But in the Stoic view, love is an act of virtue, guided by wisdom and reason. To love universally is to act in ways that benefit the other person, promoting their well-being and growth, rather than acting out of self-interest. This kind of love is not self-serving, but is oriented toward the greater good, seeking to help others develop their own virtue and achieve their highest potential. In practical terms, this universal love can be understood as a form of social responsibility. The Stoic view calls us to extend our compassion and understanding not only to those closest to us, but to all members of society. This includes acting in ways that contribute to the welfare of others, engaging in civic duties, and participating in efforts to create a more just and compassionate world. By viewing love as a universal principle, we are reminded that our actions have far-reaching consequences, and that every act of kindness, no matter how small, contributes to the greater harmony of the world. Ultimately, universal love, from a Stoic perspective, is about recognizing the inherent interconnectedness of all human beings and acting in a way that promotes the common good. It is a love that transcends the individual and embraces the collective, understanding that true happiness and fulfillment are found not in isolation, but in the well-being of the entire human community. By adopting this view of love, we not only elevate our own lives, but contribute to the greater good of all, fostering a more compassionate and harmonious world. In Stoic philosophy, the focus on accepting what is beyond our control is fundamental to how we approach love and relationships. The Stoics assert that there are two realms of existence, that which is within our control and that which is not. Our thoughts, actions, and responses to events are within our control, but external circumstances, the actions of others, and the course of events are not. In the context of love, this distinction has profound implications. To love wisely, the Stoics suggest we must learn to focus only on what we can control and release our attachment to the things we cannot control. In doing so, we can love without becoming attached to the outcomes or expectations of our relationships, which helps protect us from disappointment and suffering. Love, when understood through the Stoic lens, is not a matter of clinging to someone or something, nor is it about controlling the other person or their feelings. Instead, it is an expression of our own character, a conscious choice to act with virtue, compassion, and understanding, regardless of the other person's actions or feelings. The Stoic view teaches that we do not have control over how others respond to us or how they behave, and expecting them to behave in a certain way can lead to frustration and disillusionment. When we accept this truth, we free ourselves from the stress of trying to manipulate or control relationships, allowing us to experience love without attachment to a specific outcome. This idea is particularly relevant when dealing with the impermanence and unpredictability of human relationships. Relationships can be fleeting, and the people we love can change, grow, or even drift away. The Stoics urge us to recognize that we cannot control the longevity of a relationship or the ways in which people evolve over time. In fact, the only thing we truly have control over is how we conduct ourselves within the relationship and how we respond to the inevitable changes that occur. We cannot prevent someone we love from changing or even leaving, but we can choose how we react to those changes. Accepting that we do not control the actions or feelings of others helps us to appreciate the present moment and to love without fear of loss or rejection. Moreover, the Stoic approach to accepting what is beyond our control helps us cultivate resilience in the face of love's challenges. When we love without attachment to specific outcomes or expectations, we become more adaptable and less likely to be shaken by the natural ups and downs of relationships. This resilience does not mean we become indifferent or detached, but rather that we learn to maintain inner peace regardless of the external circumstances. Whether a relationship flourishes or faces difficulties, the Stoic remains steadfast, focusing on acting virtuously and with kindness rather than becoming overly concerned with the results. By practicing acceptance, we also release the tendency to idealize or romanticize love. Many people approach love with the expectation that it will always be fulfilling and bring them happiness in a way that never fades. However, the Stoic perspective reminds us that love, like all things, is subject to change and is often accompanied by both joy and difficulty. When we accept love for what it is, a dynamic, ever-evolving experience, we free ourselves from the unrealistic expectation that love will always be easy or permanent. This does not mean we stop valuing or cherishing the love we experience, but we learn to appreciate it without becoming attached to the idea of perfection or permanence. Love becomes something to be experienced in its full range of emotions, without the need to control or preserve it. Accepting what is beyond our control in love also encourages us to practice forgiveness and understanding. Relationships are imperfect, and we or our loved ones may falter or make mistakes. In these moments, the Stoic approach teaches us not to harbor resentment or frustration, but to focus on responding with patience, wisdom, and empathy. We cannot control the actions of others, but we can choose how we respond. By letting go of the need to control, we open ourselves to deeper connection and growth, both within ourselves and within our relationships. In conclusion, the Stoic teaching of accepting what is beyond our control offers a powerful framework for navigating love. By recognizing that we cannot control others or the outcomes of relationships, we are able to love more freely without attachment or fear. This acceptance allows us to remain resilient in the face of challenges, to focus on what we can control, our own actions and responses, and to experience love as a virtuous expression of our character rather than a source of stress or anxiety. When we embrace the Stoic principle of accepting what we cannot control, we can love more fully and live more peacefully, finding contentment in the present moment and in our ability to choose how we love. In conclusion, the Stoic approach to love presents a profound and transformative way of understanding and experiencing this deeply human emotion. By recognizing love as an inner virtue, one that is rooted in wisdom, justice, and emotional discipline, we learn to love not out of desire or possession, but through a conscious commitment to the greater good. Love, according to Stoicism, is not something that overwhelms or controls us. Rather, it is a deliberate act, cultivated through self-mastery and guided by reason. It is through this practice of virtue that we learn to love universally, seeing all people as deserving of respect and kindness, and recognizing the interconnectedness of all. The Stoic teachings on impermanence remind us to cherish love in the present moment, accepting that all things, relationships included, are temporary. This understanding encourages us to love without clinging or fear, allowing us to navigate the inevitable changes in relationships with grace and resilience. Love, in the Stoic sense, is not about controlling others or attaching ourselves to specific outcomes. It is about offering love freely, without expectation, and embracing the reality of change. Finally, the Stoic principle of accepting what is beyond our control empowers us to love without anxiety or distress. By focusing on what we can control, our own actions and responses, we are able to love more deeply without being dependent on others' actions or external circumstances. Through Stoic philosophy, we learn that love is not about seeking external validation or permanence, but about cultivating virtue within ourselves and extending that virtue to others. Ultimately, Stoic love offers a vision of love that is steady, resilient, and deeply rooted in the pursuit of wisdom and justice. It is a love that transcends the fluctuations of emotion and circumstance, and instead is grounded in our ability to act virtuously and with compassion toward others. In embracing this approach, we not only enrich our own lives, but contribute to the well-being of those around us, creating a more harmonious and meaningful existence for all.